All right. Hello, everyone. If you're looking for the second session of our Creating a Hero workshop, you're in the right place. You're welcome to have your camera on or off during this, and there'll probably be some little interaction if you'd like to be on mic or put questions in the chat, either on Discord or in Zoom. I will relay those to Bianca. Okay, so yeah, speaking of which, today's presenter is Bianca Breen, excuse me. She's a professional book nerd. Bianca is passionate about the book community, founding YA for WA in 2021, and previously holding the position of Communications Director at the Australian Young Adult Literature Alliance and co-host of the YA Room. In 2021, she was the winner of the ASA Award Mentorship and has won several residencies, including the KSP Writers Center, Vancouver Arts Center, and the City of Swan. Her short works have been published with Dragon Soul Press, Night Parrot Press, and more. She holds a Bachelor of Creative Arts in Writing from La Trobe University and lives in Perth, Western Australia. So I will go ahead and give that over to you.
Welcome, everyone. It's really exciting to be here today. A big fat thank you to writehive for having me. Can everyone see this screen? Are we good? Are we teching? Excellent. So yeah, like Julie, thank you for that introduction. I am an author in Perth, Western Australia. So I am beaming in from Whadjuk Noongar land. So I would just like to quickly acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional owners of this land and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. Um, this is my debut novel, Made of Steam and Stardust. It just came out in May. So I feel very new, very baby author, but this novel follows several characters from all kinds of different backgrounds and magic systems, and they all have very different personalities. And I really loved developing and writing all of them because characters are such a vital part of storytelling, right? They're probably the most important part of storytelling. They're how we get our readers to care about our books. They take us on the journey with us. What's the point of having a super epic world or a quest-filled journey if there's no one to go on it with you? They're just the gateway into a story, especially fantasy. So hopefully you get something out of today. This is what we're going to what I'm focusing on with you today. We're going to create a character that feels real, layered, flawed, and learn a little bit more about who your hero might be. We'll play a little bit with structure so you can understand your character's role in your plot and how you can structure their story within your plot. And we'll develop that further as well. So we're going to start and end your story with purpose. So I hope that you leave this workshop with a better idea about your character and their role in your story. But I would love to know a tiny bit about you. If you would like to pop this in the chat or unmute yourself, I would just like to know your name and if you could tell me your favorite hero. Some of you did put this in Discord already. I would love to know. My favorite is Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III from the How to Train Your Dragon series by Cressida Cal. Not the MC, but he's a hero for sure. Yeah. I know hero is such a broad term, which is going to lead perfectly into my next slide. Don't have a mic. That's totally fine, Greg. Thank you so much for being here. Canadian Irish slash fiction and poetry. Amazing. Thank you very much. So I'm not quite sure where all of you are at in your writing journey at the moment, but I wanted to quickly touch on what happens if you don't start with character. I mean, I don't personally. I usually start with a plot. If you also don't start with character or you just have like a vibe or an aesthetic or like a really vague idea of what you might want to write about next, I hope that this helps you a little bit. So if this is the case for you, if you just have the seed of something, you just have no clue where to start with character, I want you to just jot down a few sentences of the mood or the scene or the plot or like whatever you're picturing and whatever you're starting with today, just so that you have a grip on what you're working with. So if you like, obviously all of this is optional. If you just want to sit and listen, that's totally fine as well. But just jot down a few sentences of what, or a few words for your seed of a story. I'll just give you a few seconds to do that. So once you've got that, we're in the chat. Yeah, absolutely. It can be something from a work in progress. If you've already got a character that you're like half developing, hopefully this workshop is helpful for that too. I just wanted to touch on once we kind of start with, you can start with your fully fleshed character if you'd like, or if you just have a tiny seed like this, we can go from all of that from here. So I'll just move on to this next bit. So have a think. The best place to start, I think, is having a think about what kind of person would be the most challenged by this world or this plot that you have. Um, they're going to be the perfect character to explore this world through or this idea. So the example that I came up with was maybe if like your novel is set in outer space and follows a group of bounty hunters, maybe your main character is someone who is super sweet and innocent, and who is just visiting that planet and gets caught up in all the bounty hunter groups. Have a think of who would be. This is the fun part, right? You have a world and now you get to torture someone in it. You know, like what is the worst situation for this character to be put in? This is generally how I kind of start if I sort of have this idea for like, I want to write about a fairy community in a small town. And the worst person to put in that is a really selfish person who doesn't really care about anyone else. So hopefully, if you don't really have something that this kind of will set you up for the rest of this workshop. Once we've got that, I just want to quickly touch because, like I said, hero is an extremely broad term, and there are so many types of heroes. You have your anti-hero, a reluctant hero, a classic hero, a Byronic hero, an epic hero. They're all kind of a main character, right? But they all sort of approach their stories differently. I'm sure you've probably all heard of these kinds of heroes. You might know what type of hero yours is already. Um, and I also wanted to note that hero really, I think, is the end product. So we say hero as main character, but for the purpose of this workshop, I'm talking about like a good main character who is a hero and the hero of your story as well. And hero as the final product is kind of referring to like if you start with your character at the top of their game, there isn't really anywhere for them to go. And it's going to make a fairly boring story, unless you're writing like a villain origin story, and then the only way for them to go is down. That's totally fine. That's its own thing. For the purpose of this workshop, we're talking about heroes who are good and heroes who, more importantly, change throughout the story. Um, so, I mean, think of Hercules from the Disney movie. He's been a good character his whole life. He's quite brave and kind and strong, but throughout the story, he learns how to literally be a hero. And I think, yeah, unless you're doing a villain origin story, your hero is ultimately a good person. Um, so when choosing the type of hero you might want to write about, we're just building on the last exercise. What might fit into your story more, into the vibe that you have, whether you have a gritty world or a utopia, your character could be sort of like the right person for this job. They could be the completely wrong person and are forced into, they totally clash with your world, or they could be someone who wants something but can't yet handle it. So either way, they'll all kind of go through a bit of a change, um, but hopefully they can sort of fit somewhere. Susan loves the idea of the character. Sorry, Julie, I'm just like jumping in the chat as we go. Loves the idea of the character evolving into the hero app instead of starting out as a hero. Yeah. And they can, like I said, they can always start as a bit of a hero like Hercules, but still go through a bit of a change as well. But I think what we're going to be working with is the beginning of your story and the end of your story. So we'll be thinking about your hero as the final product, like what will be sort of the final version of them. Now let's talk a little bit about traits, flaws, and fears. So we're going to build our character. So I keep jumping this little chat around the screen. Um, so your hero is a good person, like I've said, but they're not perfect. And I think it's really important that your character, like you probably all know this, that your character needs to be relatable and feel like a real person, because this is how readers are going to find your character realistic and connect to them on a more emotional level. And if we can do that, then people are willing to stick with your story and see it through to the end. I think especially when they can see that character is going to go through some change and that your reader is really along for the ride. So when I start with a character, I just jot down a couple of traits. It's usually not too many. It's two or three positive ones and one or two negative ones or not so positive ones to give me a better grip on the character. Um, Take everything I say with a grain of salt. I can only really tell you about how I plan characters and hope that it helps you. But my characters, their negative traits are usually the thing that needs to change. So the flaw that I give them is the thing that they change. And I also obviously want to say that I never want to say something is a negative trait and like offend anybody, but for the purpose of this, these are something that the hero does need to change. It would usually get them into trouble. So you could have a go at using a negative trait as a booster for change for your character, or their change could come from disbelieving or doubting a lie or a belief that they've always been brought up to believe. So, for example, across my stories, I have a shy character who learns to be confident throughout the story, an irresponsible character who learns responsibility, um, and like I said, the selfish character who learns to care. So you can give your characters a couple of not so positive traits that don't need to change, or you can. I will leave that up to you and whatever's right for the story. So your character could be loyal but reckless, arrogant, and clever at the same time, brave but a little bit guarded. So I hope that all makes sense. But I want you to take a moment to jot down a couple of positive traits, a couple of not so positive traits that your character might have. Okay, we're going to touch a little bit on want versus need. You've probably come across this in your writing careers, maybe not. One is sort of an external plot device, and the other is an internal plot device. So, um, at the beginning of your story, your character wants something. This is sort of this is their goal, their story goal. They want to take the ring to Mordor. They want to make their father proud. They want to find a lost sibling. This is sort of the external conflict, the external want that sets the story into motion. It's what they think they need to be happy. They think if they do this one thing, um, it will solve all their problems. That's the story goal. So I'll give you a moment to have a think. I think we'll do one at a time. Have a think about your character's goal. You could write down a couple and just see what works as well, what you think might be right. I think actually the more you write down, the better, the more you brainstorm, the easier it might be to get ideas flowing. What's sort of like the inciting incident of your story? What sets it all off? What does your character want more than anything? And it could be something simple like they want to win lotto. They just want lots of money. Whatever they think will make them happy. Just reading Susan's in the chat. It sounds amazing. Oh my gosh, Susan, that is so deep and such a good start to a story. Oh my gosh, I would totally read on to know what happens. Perfect. So in kind of like thinking about your character in this real surface level, like we're doing at the moment, you kind of already have your wants. So in Susan's, her character wants to find her father. Greg, they probably just want to find a big treasure. But your character's need is what they really need to grow or to heal or to change. Um, this is sort of the accidental internal thing that they will learn throughout the story. So, for example, Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender, what he thinks will make him happy, what he wants, is to find the Avatar to regain his honor from his father. But what he really needs is love and respect. Um, he needs to find that on his own. He needs to learn that as the story goes on, that finding the Avatar does not make him happy, but being loved and respected within the Fire Nation is what makes him happy. Um, yeah, you can't talk about character arcs without mentioning Zuko. Go on. And then on a more, because I just like to geek out about other stories, but I should probably mention mine. Gertie is the main character in my novel, Made of Steam and Stardust. And just for another example, her want, her external want, her goal is to build a machine to stop an impending comet coming to her planet. But what she really needs to learn throughout the story is that she is worth more than what she invents. So she needs to learn a bit more self-confidence, I guess. You're never too late to Atla, Thomas. Never. It's very good. Um, so have a think of what your character might need. So like Julie or Prince might need to learn what serving his people actually means instead of maybe just like throwing money, um, raising taxes. I don't know. But needs to learn what it's like to be one of the people or so I'll just give you a few more seconds to have a think about your want and your need. Um, so why does your character want what they want, and why do they need to change in the way they need to change? So our past shapes our choices, right? So we'll need to, you might not have all this backstory in your novel. You probably shouldn't have all this backstory in your novel. But it's really important for you to know why your character is the way that they are. Um, So the character's ghost, wound, whatever they believe in, whatever you want to call it, it's an experience that has left a mark, right? So it has wounded them, it haunts them. It's something that explains their want and their flaws and what they need. So what event or fear drives your character's choices? What's something that has hurt them in the past that they're now trying to avoid? Um, what's something that they believe based on something that happened to their past. Like, for example, a classic one, I guess, is if your character was abandoned by their parents as a baby, then they might believe that they aren't worth anything. They don't deserve love. Um, or being, or maybe they were hurt by someone in the past and now they're like, well, you can't trust anybody. And they're just completely closed off and won't let anyone in. So, why does your character, what is their ghost or wound? What's happened to them in the past? If it makes it a little bit easier, start to put it all together with by filling in this sentence. So my character wants what they want because of what's happened in their past. That's their ghost or their wound. But really, they need to learn what they need to learn. And if anyone would like to share their sentence, what their character wants because of their ghost or wound or what happened to them in the past, but really they need to learn, I would love to hear your sentences. My character wants acknowledgement because he was always in the background, but he really needs to learn that importance isn't the be all end all and there are more pressing needs. Absolutely. I love that. It's almost like he's, yeah, chasing glory, but that's not what's going to make you happy. Perfect. Susan, she needs to understand her role in the community, which might not be to heal in the common sense of the word, but in bringing that community together. Oh, that's beautiful. Like there's more ways to kind of help than what she thinks. I love that. That's beautiful. I want to dive into the nitty-gritty of actually, it's one thing to like start with a character and now you know where you want them to kind of end up, what you want them to learn, but how the heck do we have an entire novel in between? So hopefully this is going to help a little bit. So at the beginning of your novel in Act 1, um, you have an idea of who your character is at the start, right? So there might be this lonely prince or a vagabond group of bounty hunters. So you probably already worked through this really. So for example, at the beginning of Made of Steam and Stardust, um, Gertie believes she's only worth what she can invent, and she wants to invent a machine to stop an impending comet to give her glory and power. So that's how you meet her. She's very, very focused. It's all about this drive to be productive, right? She's not worth anything if she's not making anything. That's her internal goal. And then that's kind of linked to the external goal of a comet's coming. She needs to invent something to save the world. So in Act Two, this is kind of, plot wise where the story begins. They meet other characters, they leave the normal world. Um, I'm sure you all are quite familiar with plots and rising action and things like that. But when it comes to the character arc, these are the events or situations that are going to start to challenge their flaw or their belief. They're going to start butting heads with people. They're going to start coming across things that don't quite fit with their aesthetic, right? Um, I think a perfect example is it's always what I go back to when I'm structuring character. Lightning McQueen from Cars. Perfect character arc. I love it so much. So in Act Two, obviously we if you've seen it, he's extremely selfish and he's just focused on winning, winning, winning. It's all about me. All the events in the movie that are sort of in Act Two are him coming across how community works and how everyone cares for each other, and he's actually getting to know people. And he meets an ex-racer who just doesn't care about the trophies that he's won, and everything that Lightning McQueen knows has been challenged. Um, this is when you think back to what your character needs and how, like, what kind of, you can just jot down brainstorms and random situations. Like for Greg, for yours, a couple of ways where your duo come up against other people and that need help saving and things that are going to challenge them. So again, in following on in my story, Gertie is sort of thrust out of the normal world that she lives in. She's traveling across the country, so she doesn't always have access to her inventions. So suddenly she needs to kind of learn to think on her own 2 feet, and she can't rely on the things that she invents. She needs to start to learn that she can do things. She doesn't always need to invent. Sure, it's good and it's helpful, but she is enough as she is. Um, the climax of the story, which I know we're thinking very broadly in terms of plot, but this is about character, so I'm going to do that. Sort of the climactic moment where your character realizes, oh, this is who I need to be. Like when they really change, like if a selfish character suddenly sacrifices himself or something like that. For me, it's Gertie's in a crisis point where she needs to pull a key out of an automaton that's about to destroy everything. And she doesn't have an invention. It's just her. And she has to sort of trust in herself that she is good enough, which she has been learning throughout the story, and that she can save the day just on her own. And she does. Spoilers. Um, so Act Two is obviously a huge part of your novel. So I'm happy if you just want to dot point some ideas that you think might challenge your character. It could just be like the people they start to meet are very, very different, or, you know, they're left without their tools or things like that. In Susan's Act Two, the grandmother dies. My character thinks it is her fault, and so to fix things, she leaves to find her father after finding a letter from him to her grandmother, telling her where he has gone, which is a long way from the community. Leaving is hard. She'll have to rely on herself for everything, and she isn't sure what she's capable of yet. They need to find their father, so make the choice to go anywhere and hope for the best. That's beautiful. And I think because you said yours was underground, right? Is this brand new world probably completely different to how your character normally lives? This plotting is awful. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I'm hoping you can use your character a little bit, and really think about centering the plot around your character and sort of giving them the tools that they need to change. And I'm sure there's plenty of Right Hive workshops going on about plot that might be able to help you as well. But I love what you've got so far. I think it sounds really interesting, and you sound like you've got a good grip on where you want it to go. It might just be the details that you need to hash out, but yeah, it sounds amazing. Um, Julie, for my ignorant prince who relies on his family name to get by, he'll need to be put in a situation where people don't know or care who he is. Yes, bring him down to earth. Need to do some brainstorm. No, but that's perfect. Um, and yeah, it doesn't have to be detailed. So a situation people don't know or care who he is, maybe he needs to like, I don't know, infiltrate something, or maybe he's come across a place where everyone absolutely hates the royal family, and now he's like, oh, and he, has to disguise himself, but that's where he gets to like learn, um, what people think, and yeah, love it. Cool. So obviously Act Two is, like I said, the biggest part of your story. So um I'm definitely a plot first character, but plot will only kind of get me so far when I'm also structuring the character. So I don't know, if you are struggling, it might be good to put character down for a little bit and focus on the plot, and then look at your plot points and think, how can I also make this a time where my character can change? Um, da-da-da. So by the time we kind of get to Act Three and where the climax is, and towards our end, we already know how it ends. We've been looking at this. What have they realized about themselves or the world, and how do they behave differently now? I think it's really important to show a scene at the end and give your character a situation where, excuse me, they can prove that they've changed. Um, Maybe they haven't really completely embraced this new world or changed their flaw, but they have changed in some way. So by the end of Made of Steam and Stardust, Gertie obviously still invents and she still holds her inventions in high regard, but she's not connected her own self-worth to the inventions anymore. So that obviously makes her a bit more happier, a bit more confident as well. So she's a bit more better off that way. Greg, I think my duo expected to find where the cursed tome is, acquire it by whatever means, and go. However, the book is supposedly at a monastery where they are received well as visitors. They are asked for help in investigating a missing caravan, which they do. In the process, they get to know monks and lay people better, even though they need. Oh, I love this. I love when people like get stuck somewhere and start to like slowly lose the sense of what they want. They're like, yeah, I'll get to it, because they're starting to enjoy where they are. I love that. Beautiful. Act three is still vague, but the main goal is that, yeah, getting to the end is the hardest part. But the main goal is the three lead groups to come together by necessity with their different character trajectories and conflicting personal philosophies could either save or condemn them. Ooh, like you don't know if it saves or condemns them yet? Is this a happy ending? Who knows? I love that. But you have an idea. I think planning both your plot and your character, giving you an endpoint can be super helpful in helping you to keep going. I know that I am a plotter, in case you haven't noticed. I'm not a pantser. I don't write by the seat of my pants. I need those signposts. I need a destination on the map. Um, so even if I don't have a lot of details, just a couple of dot points is usually enough. Uh, yeah, spoilers. Fair enough. Concept and characters first, the plot kind of stumbles along to the end. Yeah, I love that. Okay. Oh, yeah, my example for sort of also showing how a character is different, just going back to Cars, that moment is when Lightning helps strip Weathers over the finish line. He's stopped, he's about to win. He sees a car in need, he stops and he helps push him over the finish line. And it's a beautiful moment. Susan's Act Three. By then, her character has grown stronger, gained a travel companion. Oh, love an animal companion. A large dog, perfect, and has found her father. She's traveled through dangers, survived an attack from renegades, and sailed on an ocean. This sounds so epic. All of your stories sound so amazing. Oh, I really love that kind of thing too. Like a character going on this massive journey of both self and just literally crossing oceans and lands, only to find that home is sort of where she should be. Oh, I love that. That's like a classic hero's journey, going and then coming back. Greg needs to be a pantser. Yeah. And I mean, I think also, even if you're a pantser, it could change. I think that's totally fine, but you won't really know that unless you kind of have at least one idea of where it's going. Um, and I think also having a sense of what you want your readers to feel by the end of it, how you might want them to see your characters, the final image that you want them to close the book on might help as well. Okay. Let's put it all together. I want to give you a couple minutes to actually have a go at writing. And obviously, I'm not going to ask you to share anything that you write unless you would really like to, because I know like jotting down ideas is one thing, but writing actual paragraphs is another. And I don't do well without my editing, so I won't get you to share anything. This is just for you. Um, I want you to have a go. There's a bit more to this, but basically, I want you to have a go at writing a brief paragraph really showing who your character is at the start, and then a paragraph of them at the end. And it doesn't have to be like if you like Greg, if you and Thomas, if you have no idea where you're going, that's okay. Just make something up if you like. It doesn't have to be the right thing. Just an idea of where of showing how your characters has changed, even if you're just writing it for you as like a note. Um, But we're going to go back to those traits. I don't need to tell you to show and not tell. We all know that as writers. But the traits are I want you to go back and just remember those traits and think about how you can write those um, into your paragraph and really show who your character is. So, um, and this is not just in their dialogue, but sort of their internal thoughts. Like a grumpy character might think and talk in really short sentences, whereas maybe a young, excitable person's obviously going to do run-on sentences or use the word like a lot. A kind person is probably always going to check on people. A jealous person is probably going to think the worst of people. So see if you can remember to add those traits in as you write. Oh, here's my examples. A spoiler character is probably never going to say thank you. If you're really stuck with sort of the actual writing part, you can just fill this out if you like. And that way, at least you're leaving here with a solid idea of your character. So at the start of the story, your character is a couple of traits in their flaw. They want something because of their ghost or wound. Oh, sorry, because of their, what is that? They want, I don't know. Why do they want something? But they're held back by their ghost or wound. But by the end of the story, how have they changed? What have they learned? So feel free to just use that if you like. Like I said, you don't have to share any of this if you don't want to, or if you just fill out the prompt and you want to share that, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to write your paragraphs and just see how you go. Don't want to interrupt your writing, but thank you, Susan. I'm glad that this has helped. It's really hard to find that balance between like creating a flawed character, but also not making them terrible. Like no one wants to read about them. It's a really fine balance, especially when you want to make people realistic and sometimes people aren't likable, but how do you keep readers engaged? I'm definitely having this struggle where there's a story that I really want to pursue about a character who has depression, which I've had my whole life, and I really want to explore that in a fantasy setting. And the idea is she doesn't really have any friends because no one wants to hang out with her because she's sad, which is what happened to me as well. But then I'm like, but the reader's not going to want to hang out with this character either if they're really sad all the time. And it's this really hard balance to find her, you know, representing depression. Um, yeah, in a way that's not gonna turn, do you know what I mean? Not turn people off. And yeah, it's a really hard balance. I don't think Maisie ever sounded wimpy to me, if that helps. Yes, oh my gosh. So um this is why I absolutely love fantasy because and like the dystopian and the sci-fi because things are so much more escalated and the stakes are so much higher that it can make it so much easier to explore. these. And I write YA, so I feel like it's a lot easier to discuss these with young people when the stakes are higher and the world might blow up. Well, if we're all kind of finished the writing and we just sort of have a couple minutes left, does anyone have any other questions or anything that they want to share? Um, if you need to leave, that's totally fine. But I hope you found this helpful. There's so much to cover. But if there's anything that I haven't touched on that maybe you wanted to know, or anything that might need clarifying, but if not, that's fine. I must have done an amazing job today. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Right Hive, for putting on so many amazing things. Like I knew the program was huge, and then I jumped on the Discord and I just kept scrolling. I was like, oh my God, so much. But if there's no questions or sort of further things, thank you all very, very much for joining me today. And I hope it's given you at least a start, something to work on, something that you can then flesh out as you go along. I'm on Instagram, Bianca Breen, if you want to come find me on there. Otherwise, my book, you can get it from my website, which is biancabreen.com. Otherwise, I am published by a little small indie publisher, so your local bookstore can probably get it in if you are interested. Um, yeah, I'll sort of be around the conference as well. If you want to find me on Discord or anything, I'll probably see you at a couple of the workshops as well as a participant. Yeah, otherwise, I want to say thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. Thank you, Radhive, for putting this on.
Awesome. Thank you.